and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. One of the nutrients we've been looking at hard on our farm, and hopefully you are on yours as well, is zinc. Today we're going to talk about the importance of zinc and what you can do to fix your levels if you have a problem.
One other thing we've been looking at a lot on our farm has been this Xtend crop system. What did we see with Xtend around the country this year, and what should we do next year to get the best effectiveness out of the chemistry and the trait?
Well, we've got an interesting weed of the week that actually where we stand right now is just a few feet away from us, so we're excited to control this weed. We'll talk about that later in the show. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
These days, it can be hard to make the math work in your soybean fields. With the LibertyLink system with Liberty herbicide, it gets easier. A 2+ bushel per acre advantage over Asgrow Roundup Ready to Xtend soybeans means at least $18 more an acre for you. Plus, lower system input costs and more complete weed control all adds up to at least $33 more an acre for your farm. That's smart math. Grow smart with BASF.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk a little about soil sampling, not in fields, but in pastures.
Well, this may be a little bit strange for some farmers and ranchers that are listening to the show, thinking, wait a second, I soil test out in my crop ground, but now I have to do it in my pastures too? Well, it makes a lot of sense. If we can improve the fertility content and balance out in the soil in your pasture, we can get more grass growth and we can graze more head of livestock per acre.
Yeah, what it comes down to is we want you to start thinking about your pasture as a crop. Think about grass as a crop. What does grass need more than just nitrogen? Okay, I realize you're probably already throwing nitrogen out there, but we want you to look at what does your soil have in terms of soil pH, organic matter. How about all the different micronutrients? How are you doing on P and K and sulfur and all these different things? Because again, if you can get those nutrients right, you get yourself in balance out in that pasture, you are going to have more grass, just like Darren said.
One of the fun things about Ag PhD Radio is we get to talk to farmers and ranchers from all over the world. And it's interesting to me, the guys that are really starting to get the most out of their pastures are grid soil sampling, Brian, and they're even getting smaller grids. The guys that were doing 5-acre grids are doing even smaller grids.
I want you to think about this for just a second. As you drive throughout much of the United States and really all around the world, which acres are crop ground and which acres are pastured? Okay, well, the pasture acres are the ones that are too tough to raise crop on, right? And usually that means there are hills, there are valleys, there are issues, okay? So the point is there's more variability in the average pasture than there is in the average crop field. And we already know as crop farmers that grid or zone sampling is way better than composite sampling, so you can identify all the little problem areas in your field and put it this way, you can figure out where best to invest your fertilizer dollars. So what I'm trying to say here is it makes complete sense that in the pasture, you're going to have even more success with grid or zone sampling than you would even in crop ground.
All right, now here's the other thing I'd like you to consider. If you've got livestock that you have to balance a ration for, what are all the things that you're looking at? You're looking at a lot of these things Brian was just talking about with different micronutrients. Well, if you start buying micronutrients to put into a cattle ration or really any livestock ration, that's very expensive. That's the most expensive part of that ration for you. If we can feed the soil will feed the grass, and the grass will feed the livestock and so forth. It's a great cycle, but it all starts with our soil. If we don't have those nutrients out there in the soil, we're going to run short in our livestock, and you're going to see performance issues and livestock health issues if you don't balance things right.
So again, we would really encourage you, do a good job of soil testing on your farm and on your ranch, because that is absolutely going to help you improve all crop production, including grass production.
One other thing you'll certainly want to be on top of is controlling our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Your planter is the single most important piece of equipment on your farm, because without a uniform stand, you can't reach maximum yield. That's why Harvest International set out to design a planter that takes advantage of the newest innovations in planter technology. Built tough for high speed and integrated with the latest precision enhancements, Harvest International planters ensure every seed you plant today puts more in your bin at harvest. Harvest International, planting the future. If you're looking to expand your farm's grain handling, you want everything to be fast and efficient. The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. That's fast enough to fill a semi in 6 minutes. Plus, our hood is designed to gently direct the flow of grain straight down, keeping your crop in condition. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
And how about the big man, Pro Germinator?
Yeah, this guy's got some experience in the field. But look at his stats. You can't argue with those kind of results.
You're right. I know a lot of teams wishing their phosphorus player had those kind of numbers.
Right, but this guy's not just phosphorus. He's got the nitrogen, the potassium, the micros. All those just add up to his phosphorus game.
And his game is good.
Increase your productivity with Hypro's dual react control system. The dual nozzle body design allows you to drive at the speed you want while maintaining the rate and droplet size you need. Hypro, helping you spray better.
We're live on the red carpet, waiting for the next generation Xtend soybean. There he is.
Oh, Ed, look, it's Xtend's Liberty Link GT27.
I know, Edna. He's got elite genetics.
You gotta love his 4 bushel per acre yield advantage.
And he's both Liberty and glyphosate herbicide tolerant.
Definitely the year's hottest performer. Ask your Xtend's retailer about the new Xtend's Liberty Link GT27 soybeans.
Grow smart with BASF. Always read and follow label directions.
Leading the charge in strip tillage for more than a decade, the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm today.
Over the last few weeks here on Ag PhD, we've been talking about different nutrients. Today, we're going to focus on zinc.
Well, zinc is certainly a nutrient that farmers are adding in many cases whenever they're putting corn out in the field. We talk to farmers all over the country. They say, yep, I know I have to add some zinc, so I'm putting zinc in every time. And if I ask those farmers that are putting a little bit of zinc in, oftentimes it's a quart of a 9% chelated zinc. They're dropping it right in the furrow or in a 2x2. If I said, do you think you're getting enough zinc out there? I would say, almost everyone would say, well, yeah, I'm putting a quart out every time I'm planting the corn. But start thinking about where our yields are at now. If you're exceeding 200 bushel corn, as many farmers across the country did again this year, how much zinc are you actually removing from the field when you haul 200 bushel corn away? Oftentimes you're looking at 0.2 of a pound of zinc, maybe even more. Well, a quart of a 9% zinc product has roughly 0.2 of a pound of zinc. So even if you're able to extract 100% of the zinc that you put out, which, let's face it, you're probably not able to get all of that, you'd be taking everything away. You would be going backwards on a 2-year rotation just putting zinc out there with one of your 2 crops. That's why we're talking about it today.
Zinc is important for many different things in the plant, including moisture efficiency. So absolutely you want to have good zinc levels if you're hoping to have top yields. But here's one other thing that I want you to consider with zinc. It's not just about your plant. It's about overall soil health. This is one of those nutrients that we want to have at least halfway decent levels of all throughout your soil, because if you have that, then typically you're going to have a little bit more microbial activity. So I'm not saying we have to way overload the soil or anything like that, but I am just saying we don't want to be completely deficient in our soil and just try to throw a little bit out for this year's crop and call it good. Ideally, and especially if we own the ground, we'd like to get the soil levels up to a halfway decent level. And a lot of times what we're looking at for a level is we'd like to be at least 2 or 3 parts per million, but if you've got really high phosphorus levels, we usually talk about a 10-to-1 ratio. So if let's say that we had 100 parts per million of available phosphorus, we would want to see about 10 parts per million of available zinc.
That's a great point to make, Brian. Fertility balance in the soil is so critical, and zinc is one of those awesome examples. If you look at Mulder's chart, you can see that certain nutrients are going to interact with one another. Some nutrients are going to be a positive interaction where, hey, if I have more of this nutrient, it helps me with the other one. But some are going to fight against each other, like phosphorus and zinc. If you've got too much phosphorus, as Brian mentioned, our zinc levels need to be higher or our plants are going to show deficiency more commonly.
Yeah, that's something we ran into on our own farm. We thought many years ago, oh, let's just raise the P and K up, that'll be great. Well, then we started ending up with micronutrient deficiencies, especially zinc. You got to have these things in ratio, and that's one of the reasons why we talk all the time here on the show about balance of nutrients in the soil.
One other thing to consider with zinc is there are so many different zinc sources out there. Which ones should you use? Should you use the dry? Should you use the liquid? And are the chelates actually worth the money? What are you going to do with zinc, Brian? There's lots of different ways to put it on.
Well, zinc chelate, I do think all the chelates are important if we're just trying to feed the plant. So we'll use a little bit of zinc chelate too, right, with the planter. But I'd say this, if we're at 1 part per million today and we need to go to 6 parts per million within the next couple years, I'm probably going to look at zinc sulfate and a broadcast application because I can do that very inexpensively. You have to be at least a little bit careful because we don't want to way overdo it. So you got to have the right spreader to make these applications. But in terms of cost, the dry is way cheaper than the liquid. But if I can have a zinc chelate, yes, that's a nice way to help feed that crop right now this year. You can also do a little bit of foliar feeding with zinc as well.
And keep in mind, zinc does not move very well through the soil. So you probably want to do some tillage to put it down in the soil or inject that down underneath the soil a little bit, because if you get any amount of erosion, well, the zinc is going to stay in that top ½ inch of soil unless you move it down. So any erosion would wash it off the field, and oftentimes that's where I see the worst zinc problems in fields is on side hills because there's been erosion over the years.
Well, zinc is a tremendously important nutrient. Make sure you're testing your soils and applying zinc where needed. Another thing that's important if you want top yields is great weed control. Can you identify this week's Weed of the Week?
There are 6,272,640 square inches in an acre. We counted. Why? Because we designed the TigerMate 255 field cultivator and 2000 series early riser planter to maximize every single one. So when you create the most level seedbed in the industry and target a nickel-size area to plant a seed and never miss, you'll know in high-efficiency farming, there's one name to count on: Case IH. Rethink productivity. Learn more at caseih.com/everyinch.
These days, it can be hard to make the math work in your soybean fields. With the Liberty Link system with Liberty herbicide, it gets easier. A 2+ bushel per acre advantage over Asgrow Roundup Ready to Xtend soybeans means at least $18 more an acre for you. Plus, lower system input costs and more complete weed control all adds up to at least $33 more an acre for your farm. That's smart math. Grow smart with BASF.
Morton is eager to make the building you've always dreamed of a reality. Visit us online at mortonbuildings.com.
This agro-liquid line is something special. A lot of really impressive playmakers. Take a look at Sure K. This guy is an enigma.
But wrap your head around the exceptionally high plant response when compared to conventional potassium sources, the research-proven plant availability, plus flexible application options and mixing capabilities.
Really stellar performance stats. Sure K is a true standout, and that's a winning goal on any field.
Are you looking for an easy way to apply dry powdered products to your stored grain? Do you want to use the applicator recommended by industry leaders for products like Diacon D and other dry powder products? Changing Time CT applicators successfully apply a diversity of products quickly, easily, and accurately. The innovative CT applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, inoculants, fertilizers, and other dry products. For commercial use or on the farm, you need the applicator industry leaders are using. CT applicators for the changing times.
Over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of issues around the country with Roundup Ready to Xtend soybeans in terms of drift, volatility, just off-target movement in general. Today we want to talk just a little about that and what your seed choices could potentially be going into 2019.
Well, the good thing about Xtend is there hasn't really been a complaint about yield around the country. The performance has been really good on many of the Xtend soybean lines, and that's really where it all starts. We've got to be able to make money growing the soybeans. Now the challenge is we wanted another option post-emerge to spray weeds, and in some areas of the country this has either been taken away or it's been severely limited. We don't want that to happen. If you're in an area that you can still use Xtend post-emerge, here are some of the best management practices that we've seen that make the product work well and stay where it's supposed to be put.
First of all, make sure you're following the label. We still find a lot of situations where people are not following the label and we are having off-target movement because of that. Just understand that Xtend-A-Max or Ingenia, Fexapan, any of these new products, these new dicamba products, are only just slightly better than the old dicamba. There's very little improvement versus old dicamba. So you're still going to have volatility. You still have to be concerned about drift. You still have to use absolutely best management practices, including having bigger spray droplets if you're anywhere near sensitive crop. Now the good news here is a lot of people have been planting Xtend beans or they're planting corn. So with both of those crops, we don't have any issue with off-target movement. So let's say that you're just farming a big block of land and right in the middle of it you've got your Xtend soybeans. Okay, great. Now you don't have to worry about a whole lot of things. We do get concerned because great big droplets means less coverage and it does mean less weed control. So we got to make sure we're out there at the right time, killing the weeds when they're relatively small, because if you get great big weeds, this just is not going to work. The system isn't going to work. You got to do this right. You got to pay attention to wind speed. And the other big thing that I tell people is, look, if there are sensitive crops nearby, make sure the wind is not only blowing away from the neighbor today, it needs to be blowing away from the neighbor tomorrow also. If it's blowing away for 2 days in a row, we almost never see any issues.
Again, back to the label, Brian, keeping our boom height down and keeping that as low as we can as we're going through the field, and keeping our sprayer speed down. This is one that I've talked to so many guys that, well, you know, I had a little bit of a problem. What did you do differently than the label? Well, the only thing I don't agree with is the speed of the sprayer. I got to get stuff done on my farm. Hold on. You're planting too many acres of Xtend then, or you got too many acres to cover with one sprayer and you need to add another sprayer. We've got to slow down. It's so clear. If we've got that sprayer going too fast through the field, we're much more prone to having off-target movement.
So the big question is, should a farmer plant Xtend next year, or should he go to one of the other traits?
Well, first of all, no matter which trait you're planting, use the 3 pre's down, because none of these traits are perfect, and we want to have all the weed control options out there that we can.
Okay, the thing is, a lot of people are saying, well, I'd like to go Enlist. Well, let's face it, today, it's not approved. So if Enlist is not approved, well, then what are you going to run with? Are you going to run with GTLL? Well, that doesn't really do you any good because Roundup doesn't work anyway, so now you're back to straight Liberty.
Well, it's just like a Liberty Link soybean. So if you consider it like a Liberty Link soybean, that's no problem.
Right, it's no big advantage over straight Liberty, and Liberty's pretty inexpensive. So either way you go, basically we're just talking about Liberty. So those are really the other options. You can go Roundup, you can go Liberty, you can certainly go conventional if you want to, or you can go with Xtend. The thing is, there aren't enough acres out there for any of these Liberty ones or Roundup ones, I don't think, to plant all the acres we have in the United States. There are going to have to be a lot of Xtend acres. So we're going to see a lot of Xtend one way or the other, whether you use the spray or not.
Well, it's just important communicating with your neighbors to find out what they have. If everybody around you is planting Liberty Link soybeans, then you're crazy not to be planting Liberty Link soybeans too.
Yep.
Why would you be the guy that causes problems or potentially has problems around the area?
And I will say, we've experimented a lot with Liberty beans. We work with farmers all over the world on Liberty beans, and the yields are great. Yields are also great with Xtend. Yields are great with Roundup beans. The problem with the Roundup beans, or Roundup 2 beans at least, is we can't control the weeds very well post-emerge. And the old Roundup beans don't yield, so you don't want to go that way. So we're Roundup 2, Liberty, or Xtend. That's basically, those are the options at the moment. But who knows, maybe Enlist will get approved by spring.
So in terms of yield, we consider these traits to be fairly similar. I don't think there's a great big difference between them. It's going to come down to individual products, finding the best ones for your farm. The other thing is disease tolerance. We get a lot of questions about, oh no, I had this particular disease. It must be that Liberty Link beans are bad for that, or it must be that Xtend beans are bad for that. Look, this is a genetic thing. It doesn't have anything to do with the trait. So you have to look at individual varieties and pick the ones with the best tolerance.
Yeah, and I will say going forward, we're super excited about Enlist. We're super excited about Xtend stacked with Liberty that's coming soon, because then you can use those 2,4-D and dicamba type products early on in the season, or as a burn down. That's great. That's when we need them. And then you would be able to spray Liberty later on. So it'd be excellent to be able to have all those different modes of action all in one.
Well, there's certainly a lot of choices when it comes to soybean varieties and traits that you can buy. Hopefully, we can control our weed of the week with one of them. We'll show you which one will work the best coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Corteva Agriscience, Agriculture Division of Dow DuPont. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Some weeds are very aptly named, like our weed of the week, stinging nettle.
Well, when we were kids, Brand, we didn't call it stinging nettle, we called it burnweed. We knew if we ran through a patch of that and we had shorts on or bare arms, we were going to be itching for a while, because as you rub against them, they've got small little hairs and they've got histamines, and it just creates a reaction on your skin, especially if you rub it. So we learned over the years, if you run through it, you know you just ran through some stinging nettle. Oh no, I did it. I'm just not going to itch it, and it goes away a lot quicker.
But what we also learned is, how are we going to control stinging nettle? This is kind of a tough weed because it's a perennial. And the other problem is, a lot of times it's in shelter belts. Well, in shelter belts, we've got a real problem. We'd love to use Tordon on it. That's the very best thing, but we can't use that in a shelter belt.
Well, Milestone works really well too. We also can't use that in a shelter belt, so oftentimes we were down to using some 2,4-D. The best form to use right now is called Freelex. It has very little volatility, so that'd be a safe option. The best time to do it each year is in the early spring or in the late fall, before all the trees have all their leaves on them or after the leaves have dropped.
The other product that we would talk about is Remedy. That's certainly a good product for out in pastures, and it doesn't have all kinds of residual like Tordon and Milestone do. But here again, Remedy is going to kill trees or brush, so you have to be real careful about where you're going to use it.
Now, stinging nettle isn't a big problem weed, so if it's out in an area where nobody's ever going and it's in the middle of a tree grove, who cares? No big deal. But if it's an area where you or your kids are going to be running through it, you definitely want to control this tough perennial weed that can spread by rhizomes. It's called stinging nettle, and again, the best options for you are Milestone or Tordon if it's out in a pasture, but if it's around trees, 2,4-D, and especially the 2,4-D choline product Freelex would be the best bet.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
No two seasons are the same. Each brings its own set of challenges, and you've seen a few. So many threats, and not one single thing can be taken for granted. In the fight against the unpredictable, the Acceleron portfolio provides coverage on 4 fronts: fungicides, insecticides, nematicides, and bioenhancers. Rise stronger with one simple decision.
Commodity Classic is an early adopter's paradise. This is where what's next happens, where you can meet the people who are changing the way you farm. From the jaw-dropping trade show, to outstanding educational sessions, to one-on-one conversations with other farmers from across the nation. You'll be among the first to experience the new ideas, innovations, and technology that can help your operation stay profitable in times of challenge and change. Be in Orlando, February 28th through March 2nd at the 2019 Commodity Classic. Visit commodityclassic.com.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep, as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
Out here, great yield starts with great weed control. That's why I choose the Roundup Ready Xtend crop system, the system that makes the difference, because only I know what it takes out here. Yield's what it's all for. But keeping my fields clean all season, that's what it's all about. This is my field.
Farmers across the country have put their confidence in the Roundup Ready Xtend crop system. These are their experiences.
My level of confidence and satisfaction is high right now.
I am 100% satisfied with the Xtend Max with Vapor Grip technology.
The yield on the Xtend soybeans, I feel very confident that those are the leading soybeans on the market.
It has worked 100% for us, so we're sticking 100% with it all the way right now.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
There are 6,272,640 square inches in an acre. We counted. Why? Because we designed the TigerMate 255 field cultivator and 2000 series early riser planter to maximize every single one. So when you create the most level seedbed in the industry and target a nickel-size area to plant a seed and never miss, you'll know in high-efficiency farming, there's one name to count on. Case IH. Rethink productivity. Learn more at caseih.com/everyinch.
Temperatures are getting colder as winter draws near. You may have already changed your diesel fuel blend, but what are you doing with your diesel exhaust fluid? I'll share some tips in today's Iron Talk. Diesel exhaust fluid, or DEF, is used in Tier 4 and newer engines to neutralize engine pollutants. It's made of urea and water, and it can freeze at a temperature of 12 degrees Fahrenheit and lower. This requires inside storage of equipment and DEF supplies to avoid problems. Now, if you've got that covered, here are the ABCs to keep your DEF in equipment in top shape. A stands for always keep DEF in the proper containers. Think about it. It contains urea, so you know that it can be corrosive. HDPE plastic and stainless steel tanks and jugs are the best storage vessels. Keep them inside stable temperature environments and keep them out of the sunlight. If you do, your DEF should last up to a year in good shape. B stands for be sure that you don't overfill storage containers or tanks. If DEF ever freezes, it will expand. Give yourself at least 10% expansion room in tanks to avoid cracking the containers. The good thing is if DEF ever freezes, it will come back to its original consistency after it warms back up, and it should work just fine. C stands for checking your filters on a regular basis. Replace your filters as necessary. After all, this is what keeps the DEF pure and allows it to do its job eliminating engine pollutants. So remember the ABCs of DEF storage and use as we head into winter, and your equipment will thank you. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
That's all the time we've got for today's show, but before we go, we want to encourage you to check out the Ag PhD Insider magazine. You can learn more at agphdinsider.com.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.